Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your intrepid host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I greet you with the love and honor and respect that you deserve, and greetings and honor and blessings from the Creator. So, um, here I am again for another time today. Oh my goodness. I've done several videos here recently. And I was welcomed in to join a group this evening with Milky Way Weekly. Of course, I'd come on live, and now I got the hiccups or something. But anyway, and we had an absolutely wonderful discussion on Milky Way Weekly with Brian and Jen, and I'm sorry I can't remember her last name, but anyway, at least remember parts of it. But the I guess I was more focused on the information that we were discussing, and I realized, and I have to be careful with many things. Hello, Breaking Dawn, Breaking Dawn, Breaking Dawn. Hugs from South Georgia. Um, and I realized that during the our video chat, and I'd been kind of told before I had the chat that be careful, listen, pay attention, don't say anything, shut up, just watch what's going on, and we're going to reveal something to you. And I was like, okay, so my angel message, or spirit message, or channeling. And I realized that what Miss Jen was doing, and what a lot of people are, I realize it's a matter of who's using what word but what their understanding of that word is. For example, when I think channeling, I'm not thinking the same way that some of these other people are using the word channeling. And so it's like, And I, with the utmost of respect with people, it's like channeling to me is sort of like being a medium, and you allow the spirit in, and it's not that you're listening to your spirit guide or a higher source message. It's not that you're allowing anything to come into you other than the message, other than the voice. And I've quoted this with a friend of mine the other night. We had a middle of the night to the early morning, hours chat about things cosmic and so forth. And I realized, we have to be careful. And I've been using the word channeling because I have a specific kind of reality when I'm thinking the word channeling. And I realize that there are other people using that word, but they don't mean the same thing I mean. Oh. And so it's like, and I'm glad, Hawkeye has learned to keep his big mouth shut for a reason. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, no, man, I got to listen. I got to go in. Somebody's going to be channeling. Oh, man. And then I realize they're not channeling in the way that I have been referring to. Let's clear this up, please. Because these folks who are using the word channeling, it's different in my world with talking to the spirits or talking to getting angel messages, or however you want to put it. And so when I speak of channeling, I'm speaking somebody sits down, meditates, and allows something to come into them. Not meditating and listening in on the phone to your higher self, which some people are using the word channeling. And I understand why, but in my reality and what channeling means to me is that you're allowing an entity in. And so in having conversation this evening about this, and that's why I'm like, I mean no respect to anyone out there. I really don't. But the word channeling is being used in a much broader sense than what I have been referring to in some of my videos. So I absolutely wish to clear this up. Now, I never mention names because there's a reason, this person here, and like, well, no, I leave it broad. But here's the main part of this. Glad I kept my mouth shut. Glad I didn't stick my big fat foot in something until I heard the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say, until I got the full story of what's going on. So there are times when, and I'm pleading guilty right now, but there are some times I have heard some people use the word channeling, and I'm going, I can't. I'm sorry, can't go there. When actually, what they mean in my realm is a spirit message or an angel message. That's what I talk about, and I'm connected into that whatever my. I got a direct line to the quantum computer. You know, we all do. But the thing is that some people are calling that channeling. And I understand where they're coming from by using the word, but I have misinterpreted what they've been doing. They've been actually tapping into the same quantum computer without necessarily they're listening in. They're listening to a higher spirit. Sometimes it's a different entity. And I'm like, you know what? Let's have a chat about this, please. Because other than a couple of words of what was said during Milky Way's video earlier on, well, now it's Sunday, but Saturday night, in what I call angel messages in my downloads or my angel zip files. Because they come in like a picture, and then when they get into my head, it's like a zip file. You unzip it and the file opens up and the rest of the information's there. And I'm like, whoa, crap. So I'm getting zip files from wherever it is. I look up there because I feel it in my head, and anyway, it could be over there or it could be underneath me, not necessarily in the planet, but anyway, in the universe, that is. So I realized that, oh my God, there are some people who are using the word channeling that are actually in respect to describing things. They're not really channeling because they're attaining their own higher self. They're listening to the spirit messages. Channeling is when you allow an entity to come in you. That's my definition. That's how I've always known it for as long as I can remember at my 66 years of learning. But so I look at this and I go, wait a minute, but that's not what you're talking about here. You're talking about listening into the cosmic voice. You're talking about listening to the quantum. Oh, and you've heard it just slightly different. And I've discussed that each one of us, I think, and I use this in terms that, there's like the library. Now, some people call it the Akashic Records okay, I'm just calling it the library, the knowledge library. It's out in the universe. It's out in the quantum universe. All beings can access it. There's a lot of information, ET messages, the part of I did a video and only did part A actually about the interview with an alien. Whether Errol discusses that this information is out there for everyone. It's simply that we as human beings have been taught not to tune in. Our stations are muddied. All the chaos that we're in keeps us from hearing what we're supposed to normally hear. And some of us have heard things for a long time. And so, but we're not channeling the energy. As per, I don't know, the dictionary says about channeling. Now, in my witchcraft wizards thing, channeling means it's sort of like a changeling, channeling. So that you take the channeling of the entity so that the entity speaks through you. That's not what some of these, what other folks are doing, but they're using that word. Now, they've confused me by their usage of the word. Now, in their world, it might mean all of the above. But when I'm speaking of this channeling, I am being specific about allowing any other entity to even touch your ass. Hands off, please. I only allow my spirit guide to be the one who comes down and taps me on the shoulder kind of deal, because that is the spirit I trust. And sometimes I think it's nothing more than my spirit self, and I'm projecting it into the quantum, and I'm relating my own self. I'm my own spirit guide, but my spirit guide is my tuning in. Now, there are other times I have known, just plain and simple, Hawkeye's been a just complete dumbass, and it's been his spirit guide that literally come out of nowhere and help me get back on my feet and show me the right way to go, when to keep my big mouth shut, when to listen. I mean, so many things. But if somebody were to ask me, what are you doing, Dave? I'm not channeling. I'm listening. And that's what a lot of these other people now that are using the word channeling, they're actually just listening. They're paying attention to the higher self. And now I am seeing people like, oh my God, I'm sorry. When I read the description there, I was assuming you were letting these beings overtake you. No, that's not it. Oh, now I'm doing this video in advice to other people. Make sure if you're going to use a word such as channeling, maybe you're using the wrong word. And you may be turning people off by saying, well, I'm channeling. They're not. See, I was thinking, nah, they're letting entities in. That wasn't the case in this particular circumstance. And like other people are using that word, they're using terminology. And because they're kind of new in the business, in the spirituality realm, they don't quite have the background that some of us do. And so channeling to me means changeling, channeling. The entity enters into you, at least partially. And what's actually transpiring with a lot of people is that they are listening. Now, I was interested, and I hate to speak about someone, but the video's out there, so you can go back and listen to the Milky Way Weekly that we did just a few hours ago. And but the conversation, and it was like I came to this realization myself a little while back, and it's been several years now, and I have made this discussion and have had this discussion where there are many of us who used to do tarot cards or use, in my case, tarot wasn't really it for me, but I really liked the idea of using rune stones. And so, but I was even told a ways back now, like 8 or 9 years ago now, actually, like 2009, 10-ish, 2013, I was like, you need to lay off this stuff. So at least 5 years ago, at least, that I haven't gone there, because I was told these things could be influenced by other beings without your knowledge. And that if I was to get in touch with the higher self or beings or angels or spirit guide or whatever, I needed to pick one and learn how to communicate, how to listen, how to know what's good, bad. But once I got this straight line in, nothing that comes in on this frequency is ever bad. Now, they will warn me of calamities. They showed me pictures of the volcanoes and people being burned alive, and that was a shitty picture. But I had to see it. And I've talked about this before, but to the point, it's, I speak about it, and then 6 hours later it happens. I do another video. I talk about earthquakes, and then it happens. Oh, holy shit. So in my own self, in my realm, in my reality, these zip file downloads I'm getting from wherever it's coming from the cosmic library, if you will, because I have just stuff about me that relates personally to Pleiades, and I don't discuss it much. I just mention it in passing, but it's just something that I know, and I kind of fit the bill, and okay. But I'm not going to say, well, I know all this about the Pleiadians, and now what I'm here is what the things that I get may have a Pleiadian influence because of what I know about myself and things, where somebody else might be Arcturan or Sigma 25 or M15 or Scorpios. Okay. But to the point though, so we may be going to the library that we understand best. And from one branch library to another can be slightly different information. It's basically all the same, except one's worded differently than another, or we interpret it slightly differently from our own social behavior. And as we download the message, uh, because I've been working as a linguist and literature and puppeteer and plays, blah, blah, blah. So my vocabulary in a lot of ways is different from other people. So my description of things, da, 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 yeah, where somebody else, they're more regimented in how their vocabulary is set up. So it uses these words to explain something. I use all kinds of words to try to explain something. So in that, I say that there are folks using terminologies which I've been accustomed to for so long, and I realize that they're in my world, they're using these words out of context to me and what I know, and a lot of other shamans and everything. So just with that said, and if anybody saw my videos before, if you are the type of person who is actually tuning into their spirit, and you're here, you've got a direct line, and you've realized that it was discussed with this evening, and that tarot cards aren't necessary. I've learned to put down any kind of physical thing that might get tainted by a spirit walking by, or on purpose or whatever, or somebody put a hex on in another dimension and I want to do rune readings or something, and it's like, no. So it's like I was told many years ago to stop. Well, other people have been asked to stop with that as well, because there are some creepy entities out there. And I'm very proud and very pleased to hear that people are progressing in this area. Kudos, folks. But be sure when you put descriptions of things in your stuff, that when you use the word channeling, that's really what you're doing. You may be using the wrong word and confusing some of us. Now that I understand what some of these folks are talking about, in my world, it's a misused world. In my world, it is a misused word because of my teachings. Now, are they necessarily wrong? Only by the definitions that I've been set forward with in all of my teachings. Okay, I'm making this perfectly clear. In their world, they're fine with the word channeling. I'm not. It makes me uncomfortable. But we are fine tuning our own. We've got a direct line. We're not channeling anything. We're going straight to the computer. We've actually got, Bluetooth worked into us. We're Wi-Fi ready, man. And those of us who have been tuning our skills, we've put down the cards. We've put down the things, not necessarily charts, because the charts don't lie. Charts are charts and the planets move, blah, blah, blah. That can't necessarily be tampered with. But if you're using any kind of tactile thing in this plane right now, the message is ask people to stop. Because if you already have the ability to communicate into this other realm, whatever you want to call it, this other layer, this other level, and you're using basically you're using the cards or a Ouija board or runes or whatever as an excuse to get the message out, because somehow you've got to rely on something else to understand the message. You don't trust yourself. So as you get into certain things, it's like once you tune into it, you don't need cards. You don't need runes. You see things that I keep telling people, buyer beware. Folks say, well, I wish I could see the future. No, you don't. No, you really don't, because when you ask and open up to some of these things, you will be so shocked, surprised, horrified. The pleasure at the moment ain't as great as I would like to be, but we've all been taught. We got some rough bumps to go through. Mother Earth is expanding. That the scientists came out with a new thing the other day. Oh my God, the magma's on the move. What have I been talking about almost for a year now? The magma's on the move because of all these energies. The magma's heated up. The viscosity of the magma has changed. It's not as thick as it was. And with the centrifugal force of the Earth, just look down and look down in the bottom of a washing machine, that lift the lid when the spin cycle's on, and watch where everything goes to the outside. Where does the water and stuff go? To the outside, and until the drums stop, the water will come back in. But when you put that puppy back on the spin cycle again, everything goes to the outside, centrifugal force. And you're trying to tell me that that's not happening with the Earth? Duh. Just look at your washing machine. Okay, but with that said, now that the planet is heating up from the inside, they're wondering why the oceans are so warm on the bottom. Okay, the cracks are open up. Another one opened up just the other day down south somewhere. Can't remember where. That's not the point. Those are signs of cracking, expanding. If we were shrinking or moving or this going over that one, cracks would not be appearing. There would be, it'd be different. It would be squashed or something. But anyway, to the point. But now the science is backing up what some of us have been talking about for a while. And it's not to pat myself on the back. It's that here, we've been discussing this science in a different point of view from everybody else. Now the other scientists are just catching up with us. I just tuned into the quantum computer. That's all. Where did I get the information? The same place other people can get the information. The same place you can get the same information as me. Why do I have conversations with some people and I go, man, that shit, Dave, just rings true. It makes sense to me. That's because you are turning into it. And I'm just like using some trigger words, and I'm helping to stimulate your own mind to think about this. But as you do so, you're tapping into the same place I am. The rest of us are. The quantum consciousness, however you want to put it. But that's where the information's stored. Some of us like, well, we're looking into the future. That's because we're all tapping into that same thing. But after the fact, I've heard other people, and it's like, and I remember, them showing me pictures in my head of volcanoes going off and people and stuff. And I'm like, how about that? When was that? Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. I did a video on it. That's not what I said to them, but I was thinking to myself, I did a video about that so I could document it. So I could say, remember when I said that? Not to prove me right, but see, there are some of us who are tuning into these things. Maybe we're not so batshit crazy after all. And if you tune into the same thing I am, that we are, we're all going to be tuned in. We're all going to know. We're not going to have to tune into the internet to get our downloads or whatever, our cosmic zip files. We're going to be able to, oh shit. Oh, we're going to get together and just look at each other and go, did you see it? Oh, we're not even going to have to speak because we'll all see it in each other's eyes that we got the same download, that we all got the same kind of zip file. And that's what's happening right now. This awareness thing. And many of us are saying this. 6 months ago, it just seems like people were really stumbling in the dark. I mean, really stumbling in the dark. And now it's like all of a sudden lifted the veil, see the light, however you want to put it. They're somehow now going, what? Oh, I can see clearly now the sky above, blah, 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 But to the point though, it's like, what? Well, that's interesting. And I spoke about some other people before who've just blatantly come out on YouTube and saying, you know what? I thought it was BS. And now I'm like, I'm in this. I believe it. I can feel it. I can smell it, see it. I mean, it's and so more people are getting on board with this. Why? Because we are expanding this thought. Now, a lot of people, I want to make sure that we get something right here. People are kind of knocking this word manifestation around. Well, we can manifest anything we want within reason. We're going to manifest our futures within reason. We're going to manifest this and this and this within reason. And the reason I say that, within reason, is because there's got to be over like 62% kind of deal. It's got to be like 2/3 of the planet has to agree on it before it can actually happen. It's got to be like a 2/3 majority vote, if you will. 2/3 of the planet has to agree upon the same thought. Woo, that's heavy duty. And right now, people are getting weeded off of this planet left and right. Storms, fires, the weirdest, craziest shit in the world. I mean, come on. We all know this is some weird stuff going on. And there's some weird stuff going on in the galaxy as well. I mean, the Chinese are saying they're building another moon. Well, I want to know where they're getting the materials, and we should be seeing spaceships going off every 10 minutes, taking stuff into space. Now, I'm not saying they ain't doing it, but my question is, if they're building it, where are they getting the stuff from? There aren't great big spaceships carrying big pieces for a moon. So my suggestion to the a moon, the Chinese want to have a moon. What about if they went out there and towed in an asteroid? That's a new moon. That'd be a big rock. They could park it out there. Why not? We got a moon. I'm watching it out the window right there. By the way, I should not be able to see the moon through that window of my house. The moon's in the wrong place. Again, some more. And it's also tilted upside down, like, and I mean, just within the last hour, it's rotated. I mean, it was like doing really fine, and now all of a sudden it's like this. Okay. All right. So between the Earth wobble that I speak about, scientists say the magma's on the run. And it's coming up through cracks in the Earth. Well, if the Earth is expanding, which makes absolutely perfect sense, and we're sloshing because we're out of balance, because the magma's on the move. That's the key to this. Is it Planet X? Not nearly as much as the magma's on the move. That's why the Earth is out of balance. That's why all of the jet streams are wacky. The Earth is doing this number here, and the jet stream can't keep up. It dips over this way one day, and the Earth wobbles back and tries to catch up. We're out of wobble. Badly. The magma's on the move. Scientists now claim, now it's the new thing. We've been warning you for a while. Magma's moving. I know Stuart Swerdlow's been talking about it for the last 2 years. And I found that out after I got my downloads. And then I went and checked some of his stuff. And Stuart said that about the same time I got my download. Magma's on the move. And if you live in California, and if the fires aren't telling you to get the heck out of there, the earthquakes and everything that's coming up soon, there is so many volcanoes in California. I'm sorry, I would figure out a way to get out of there. I'm just saying. Casey warned people back in the 40s, California is going to fall into the ocean. Well, how it does whatever it may be, what if the ocean swallows it up versus it sinking? With all the volcanoes and everything, it doesn't necessarily have to slide into the ocean. The ocean could come in and flood it. The last year or so with the Oroville Dam and all that and the flooding and everything, I realized that where I live right here, right now, sitting at this computer, is higher than the Sacramento Valley in elevation. They're like only 175 feet above sea level. I'm sitting at 240. What? So, I thought, well, they're higher up in elevation. No, they're a lot closer to sea level than some places around here next to the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm like, they're really not that high in elevation. And, stuff could happen, especially in California. So I was really surprised about that. I'm thinking, 300-400 feet at least. If they're at lower elevation than where I'm living right now in the valley there. And I was like, wow, anyway. So there are things that people, they live there, but they don't look at the earth around them. They don't look at their surroundings. They don't look at the natural things. I'm that weird guy that likes to look into those kinds of things. But so they really don't know what they're standing on. They have not a clue what these energies are from space. And now they're talking about this dark energy hurricane. Hang on. It swallowed a dwarf galaxy. Hang on. There are two galaxies in the universe. Hang on. They said that story back in the 80s, that there were two galaxies that were mingling in the 80s. Now they're rehashing the story. Every so many years, they run the same story. Oh, well, we have a new picture. Yeah, but you don't say we've been watching this for the last 30 years. We discovered this back in the late 70s, but woo, we got a new picture and ooh, destruction. And wait a minute, it really hasn't changed in the last 30 years. Picture's pretty much the same. It is moving, but, okay. So now people are like, now they're worried about it. And I'm thinking, hang on, deja vu, they're playing this same, they're playing these same games all over again. Oh, now these waves of energy somehow have turned into a hurricane of dark matter. It's dark matter. You can't see it. So how in the hell are you going to describe it to me that it's a hurricane? If it's dark and you can't see it, I suggest and have submitted for a long time, it's not dark energy, it's clear energy. We're seeing through it. And what's on the other side just happens to be dark. It's energy that's there, that it's opaque. We don't see it because we're seeing through it. It doesn't have like a light source unless something agitates it, like I have been saying for a long time. I know it sounds like I'm trying to put myself up. No, but I mean, been trying to tell the truth about things. It isn't about me. It's about the information. And the information has been there's plankton in space. And when comets go by, it heats it up. Now the new thing is this last week, along with cracks opening in the earth, and oh, by the way, the magma is on the move and headed out. Why? Centrifugal force. Okay, simply. Now the magma is much thinner than it was before due to the cosmic rays. And now that it's much thinner, more like water, and now with all the pumping and all the fracturing and all the drill points, guess what? They are creating little seismic zones way down deep in the earth. And there's already enough cracks in the earth without you changing it, but you're going to put high pressure down there and you're going to extract what comes back out, and it's going to have an effect. Now, is it the sole cause? No. But it's damn sure going to help. And it's going to hurt some places because of these huge well fields. Because what if all these well fields that are just, a couple of acres away, and I've read some of the stuff on, injection wells and so forth. They say that in order for it to be effective, there should be a minimum of 7 for like one field. So you think, well, for every one, there are 7 as part of one, and then there's 7 more in the group, or maybe 6 or 8. But the industry standard is that it must be at least 7 of these wells, the main one and 6 around it, in order to pump whatever area they want, in order for it to be efficient. Now that just kind of sounds a little strange there, but to that point, though, it's not every one of those is doing it. They have to have 7 of these things at every one of these stations, and they're drilling thousands of feet down. They're fracking the earth. They are fracking, cracking. They're forcing cracking, fracking. Duh. So what is going to happen? There's going to be some lava spurting up in places as the magma continues to heat up. I don't know what's going to happen. I know that along the Appalachian coast, there's a hot spot under Vermont, northern New York, and up in there in New Hampshire. There's a hot spot under there that the scientists are seriously worried about. And why? Because old volcanoes way back, because the Appalachian Mountains are old, are finding cracks up through the earth. Pennsylvania, what did they do in the old days? They drilled for oil. What else did they do? There's a lot of coal mines up there. Guess what? All those things have had an effect on the earth in one shape or another. You dug a bunch of tunnels, they might be stable, but if Mother Earth starts wiggling around a little bit, them tunnels are fracture points. There are tunnels that if something broke in further below, what about the coal that's still there? What would happen if magma hit a coal chamber and the coal caught on fire? There would be mountains burning you couldn't put out because of the coal in the mountain. What about them apples? And I mean, you talk about a mess. The years ago, I remember there was a fire. There was a peat bog fire in the not in the Everglades. I'm sorry, in the Okefenokee Swamp over here in southeastern Georgia. It takes up, on the other side of I-75 all the way to the ocean is pretty much the Okefenokee Swamp. There was a peat bog fire there, and it took months to put it out because it was a peat bog fire. And it had gotten so dry that year. And this thing, I mean, South Georgia looked like parts of California now because of the peat bog fire. And I mean, it's 100 and some odd miles from me to where that thing was. And there was so much smoke down here in South Georgia and northern Florida, you couldn't drive up and down the interstate. It was hard to breathe. I mean, people were choking, asthma patients, and it was because of a peat bog fire in the Okefenokee Swamp. Now, what if one of those coal mountains catches on fire from underneath? Sparks, and that coal catches fire, gets just enough air to like really burn. Man, oh man, oh man, buyer beware kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that gets shown to me, like, there's an area up there, and scientists are proving it. So it's like, okie dokie, we have data on this. All right. So those of us who are speaking kind of metaphorically or etherical or whatever, the science is coming out to back up a lot of the stuff that I've been trying to explain. They've been giving us silly science, and ET gives me the truth, but it gives each one of us the truth. That's a part of this. So I would beg you, please, if you know folks who are using the term channeling, make sure that they understand what the word means. Channeling means changeling. Channeling means allowing an entity touch you, enter you, whatever, and to speak through you. Now, if you're connected to the heaven's internet or the galactic internet, if you will, or however you want to look at it, that's not channeling. That's different. So make sure you want to use the right terminology because you want people to come in. So I look around and I've looked at it and I'm like, the best thing is that you're just tuned in. My higher self, okay, but I would much rather you tell me, and I mean this with the utmost of sincerity, I would much rather you tell whoever you are, who says you are channeling, but you're actually hearing your spirit guide or your higher self, however you want to describe it. I would much rather you tell me, my angel told me this, than for you to say, I channeled this message from. Does that make sense? Because when I say, well, I got a channeled message from, Umpty Scrunch, and Umpty Scrunch says, blah, blah, blah. Well, who the hell is Umpty Scrunch? I don't know. And how in the hell did you get in touch with them? Are you sure? There's so many questions that pop out into my little tiny brain that I go, I'm sorry, you've already turned me off. But when you tell me I have had an angel message or I'm my higher self, my ET guy, however you want to put it, but when you say that you have had the communication with this, I have 200 times more opportunity to believe you than if you're trying to say you picked up some message from some being out there and you channeled them and then you just turn me off, because that kind of thing is very dangerous. But when you're talking to your higher self, say so. That's not channeling. You got a direct line to channel, changeling. I'm not going to repeat it, but I already did. Okay. Sorry about that. But we have to be reminded about these things. And in this time of the new age movement thing, people need to understand the difference, because folks go to channelers to learn how to let beings in them. Whereas I would much rather, let's discuss how you can fine tune, I call it the radio. How can you fine tune your radio to hear what's out there? And we're all hearing it. This evening when we discussed it on Milky Way show, I agreed. I'm like, yep, that's what I heard. Yep, I got it a little earlier than you did. And I'm thinking to myself, and I didn't say this, but I did tell her, Jen, quite frankly, yes, I agree with everything you said. Just a different change of words. Not that it meant it, it was just how you described it. That's all. But all the information, solid information. And I had gotten it slightly earlier than she did, but she got all the same information. That's all. It's not about a race, but she picked up the same things. She called it channeling. I call it just listening. Because I didn't have to ask anybody. I'm getting my cosmic zip files. It's a picture of a something, and then over a day or so, the rest of the message comes out. I feel it, see it, get more information in, see something on YouTube or in whatever it is. It'll trigger it, and here I am doing a video. Okay. So, but again, I think we need to come up with another word for what those of us are doing, because it really is not channeling. And we shouldn't use that word because it's inappropriate for what we are actually doing. We are connected, our connected consciousness. I don't know. Let's make up a word, but to call it channeling is kind of cheating the universe in a way. I know, weird, but everything has a meaning. And when we abuse the meaning of something, it can have adverse effects. For example, when I see people talking about channeling, I'm assuming they're letting shit into their auras. Little did I know, they mean something else. Oh, well, one could say, well, my bad. But I could also say, well, bad on you, because you're actually using that term inappropriately. But I always say, with respect, I honor you all. But I'm glad we've had this conversation here because I had the wrong impression. And I'm very proud. I even said so to Jen. I said, I'm very proud of you and how you've, put down the tarot cards. And I told her to her face, on this, but I am very proud. And of everybody else who's getting this next awareness. But we must be careful on the terminology that we use. I graciously ask folks, try to use a different definition. Now, for the fun of it, I'm using cosmic zip files. I got me a cosmic zip file because it comes in and it's all there, but I might only see a big portion of it. And as I discuss this with other people, that's what they're calling downloads. Now, some people, instead of downloads, they're saying, well, I channeled this. Well, basically, they were just listening to their spirit guide talking to through the headphones, if you will. Your Bluetooth that's connected. You're fine-tuning your Bluetooth to the cosmic quantum computer, so you can get your zip loads. Your cosmic zip files downloaded, But anyway, I can repeat myself a bunch more, but that's like unnecessary. So, but to follow up this, I'm very proud to understand now. I need to make sure that folks are using. Okay, when you say channeling, do you mean you're got the phone on, or are you doing this other thing? Well, I'm listening. Okay, you got a phone call in. Okay, that's not channeling. You're aware of your own self. You're writing stuff down, your meditation state. And now, and the question was asked of me, do you have to do anything anymore to make the connection? And I'm like, no, not any longer. And that's one of the things that's happened in this last year for me. I've known that I've had this connection for a long time, because I always say I got a tap on the shoulder. That's sort of like, hey, incoming, and if you ever watch Third Rock from the Sun, where French Stewart would go, incoming message from the big giant head. Well, Well, in a way, it's not like that, but it kind of sort of is. It's a incoming message from the big giant head, and my spirit guides, they're smiling right now, going, "Yeah, okay, we get the joke," But to the point, maybe it is a big giant head, but no, they assure me it's not. I'm just thinking about French Stewart. Incoming message, okay, you get it. But with that said, though, it's like that, now that would be channeling, in my opinion. He just didn't get a phone call because he don't know what was said. When he would come out of his little thing, he was like, well, okay, what'd they say? Well, so that's like, all right, you weren't aware of it. Now, my point to this is that when you retain your own awareness and you're in a heightened state of meditation or whatever, and you hear the voice or the download, however you want to term it, when you got it, when the connection's strong and you got a good connection, you're just listening in. That's not channeling. That is a different thing. So be aware of that. And I kindly, respectfully ask those, if that's what you're doing, change the word. Let's find another word so that we know what we're talking about. But to use the word channeling could very well be turning people off to come and listen to your message. I know in some instances it did me, because I don't abide by the let the entities into your brain. But then when I find out that's not what they meant, well, I'm more than happy to listen. Come to find out, you got the same information I did, just a little later, but the same. And I'm not in a competition. I'm just saying, in my world, I was already talking about this. Other people picked it up, which is great, but they were listening into the quantum computer. We're all downloading the same information. It may be worded differently for those of us. Me being Palladian, I go to the Palladian library. Other people might go to the Lyran library or the Arcturian or the Draco or whatever you're from. You go to that library because that's where your consciousness will go. It's familiar to you. But all the information is available in all the branch libraries, regardless whether of what star system or background soul, seed thingy you might have going on. It won't matter, because you can access the main computer at the main library as long as you know what the right questions are. When you ask the correct questions in the appropriate way, they'll give you all the cosmic zip files you want, And one of the things that we kind of agree on, sometimes they have to dunk us in. That's why I keep mentioning the word transition versus ascension. Because until we go through the transition, we can't ascend. All right. And all of these downloads we're getting, this person's waking up. They put down their tarot cards. This is all improvement. This is showing me and the rest of the world, oh my God, we are all tuned into the same computer. Oh my God, we are getting very, very, very similar information. Oh my God. And we got it. Okay, mine was a little earlier than somebody else's. Doesn't matter. We all got it, relatively speaking, within the same period of time. What's 2 months among friends in the galactic reality, What do we mean by the matrix anymore? I want to say sometimes our brains are part of the matrix. We are part of the matrix. The video I did about the Mandela and all the different wheels upon wheels and all the spokes and everything, and all of the connected but not connected but connected. And, and that's just one tiny bit of reality. Now, some folks would like to say, well, that's just stuff made up in my mind. I'm sorry, I hit my head on a door the other day. That's not spiritual. That was 3D hurt my head, okay? So it's like, oh, but you're in a computer game. No, the F I'm not. I'm in this 3D freaking reality. They're trying to play me like it's a computer game. Well, we are all living in a simulation. That's because these higher ups, not in the spiritual sense, But the crazy folks who want to rule us on this planet, they have programmed the planet, but not necessarily the Matrix, and not necessarily me, because I've been an outsider all the time. But for those of us who are waking up and looking behind the curtain, blah, 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 here's the deal. We're like, you can't put us back in the bottle. This genie's out. Whatever you try to do to us, unless you just kill us, I'm sorry, but it's hard to detune from your spiritual self once you have made a sure enough, bona fide, both hands connection with your spirit. You believe it, you have the faith in it, you trust it, and you don't have to rely on cards or, whatever. Now, there has been some like folks, well, I don't need, crystals help in a lot of ways. And I've done a lot of study and meditation with crystals and things. And my point on that is, like, I'm wearing a crystal right now in my medicine bag. I'm sorry, but I would feel naked without them. I could take my clothes off and be naked, but wouldn't feel naked. You take this, my crystal off in my medicine bag, I whether I had tons of clothes on, I'd feel stripped naked. I would not feel powerless or anything, but I would be missing a great deal. So you can charge crystals with your own energy, don't let anybody else touch them. Don't get them out of your, keep them in your own aura, give them a break. I take mine off sometime. It'll say, I need a break from your ass, Hawkeye. So, okay, hang it up. Sometimes in salt water, sometimes outside in the rain. Sometimes if I'm at the river, I put it in the water. So, and I'm always cleansing them one way or the other in that respect. But the thing is that it can enhance your tuning because they use quartz crystal in all kinds of radios. I mean, a crystal radio in the old days was, guess what? It's a little tiny sliver of a piece of crystal, and you run a small charge across it, and you can plug these things into the earth. You don't even need a battery. That's how little energy it uses. And, that was my first radio. It was a little AM radio, and I could pick up all kinds of stations just by sticking a metal tent peg in the ground, when we were camping outside in our backyard. But anyway, but to the point, though, it's like now there's a big resurgence of this. Well, duh. So you can pick up other energies and things. So the crystals, if you tune them, if you are aware of what you're doing, ask the crystal, be polite with the crystal, know when to take it off. Now, I understand there's a lot of people, in my humble opinion, they take their crystals off too much. Well, I've had a bad day. Well, then smudge you and the crystal. Don't take the crystal off of you. No, you're trying to tie your energy into this crystal or into your medicine bag. You don't take the medicine bag off. You smudge you and the medicine bag because now it's a part of you. So if you take it off, I'll leave it over here. Now, sometimes I got to, like I said, sometimes crystals need a break from us, but mostly, if you're trying to stay in tune with something, then keep the crystal on you. You just ask the crystal, hold it in your hand, sometimes left, sometimes right, and the crystal will let you know. Put it in one hand. Does that feel okay? Put it in this hand. It might be the wrong crystal. It might not feel good in either hand. Go get another one. And size doesn't matter in this case. I've got a great big crystal sitting right over here. That's since it was almost within arm's reach, for a lot of people, this is a pretty good sized crystal, and it is, and it's very powerful. And I put it just near me. Okay. Now I have a lot of smaller crystals. It's really a very pretty rock. I'm trying to get it in the right light. It's a very pretty rock. It is. And the energy, and I mean, this was pulled straight off the mountain. It came off the mountain. They didn't really break it because there's still a substructure here with this crystal. But now, when I want to go on really good journeys without mushrooms or any other kind of help, I will smudge and I will do certain things. It's basically my own little cleansing ceremony. Spirits go away, good spirits here. I mean, it's just my little thing I do, which all of us should do if we're going to go into a really serious meditation. But if I want to go on a mind journey, every one of these facets can take you into another dimension. If you focus on this one, for example, and look down through it from its perspective, it can take you in a totally different dimension. So this one crystal here with all these different facets on it will take me on that many journeys. If I focus, if I allow it, if I tune myself with it to the point where, thank you very much, I love you, and breathe your essence into the crystal so that it knows you. Thank it. Thank you very much. Sometimes I just go by and pet my rocks, and like, wow, look at this. But the thing is that some people say, well, I really don't need a crystal. Let me just add this. You want to fine tune what you're doing? Then find a crystal that agrees with you. I'm like, this thing's really shooting the juice to me right now. I hold it in my hand and it, the light, trying to get the light just right. It's doing some really nice reflection. But anyway, and now over here on this other side, I've got a much smaller crystal. This is a double crystal. And these aren't necessarily for wearing, but I keep them around me. And this is a double. And this one off to this side it's got a little bit of smoky quartz in it, and different kinds of crystals. Smoky quartz versus I can never remember the name. It's the purple stuff. Anyway, amethyst. Thank you very much. Amethyst crystal. And from one crystal to another will have a different frequency to it. So, check around. I always ask the crystals, will you help me meditate? Can I meditate with you? And it'll warm up or it'll want to get out of my hand, and I'm always, I'll give it a minute or so and say, are you sure? Is it all right if I meditate with you? And okay, or no, please put me down. And you'll know it's not necessarily a word per se, but you'll know it would not this crystal, not right now. Now, sometimes I've used crystals for healing with other people in meditation, that I will pick up a crystal to meditate for a person who's 1,000 miles away, but I use the crystal to help me make the connection to wherever that person may be. And so it's like, before you chunk your crystals and say, well, I don't really need them in this. Yeah, actually you do. Because any kind of movie going back to the early 50s in sci-fi, there are crystals in everything. The aliens have crystals in their spaceships. There are crystals in this. There is something about crystals that go way back in the science fiction. And this old science fiction, they actually had scientists working for them to help them with the science part. And so I've spoke about this before, but to the point though, everything is crystal based at some form, some kind of a silica base here. There's something to that. So why not use it to your advantage? If you're having difficulty focusing, or, keeping the receiver on, or, I think of my phone and I've got it on speakerphone basically, versus I have to dial my spirit guide to talk. No, it's like I got a Bluetooth speaker thingy on all the time. So when there's a message hanging out up there, I get this little tingle, or however it comes in sometimes. And I realize, whoa, incoming message from the big giant head. I know that they really laugh. I got to have a spirit guide with a sense of humor to put up with my ass all these 66 years. And they're laughing, going, yeah, that's right. But to the point, though, is like, But use the crystals, though. Use them to your advantage and use them in a wise way. And the biggest thing is you be respectful, because this can put you to a dimension that well, I don't know about that. If you don't have faith and well, I don't think that could really happen. How about you turn that frown into a smile, and you say, well, what if that shit's true? If I meditate just on that face of this crystal and allow myself to go in there, it's nice if you just burn a candle and just allow the light and let your soul, let your focus go into one of these facets on the crystal. And boy, you get some really crazy places that you literally will get almost transported, transmuted, whatever you want to call it. But you got to believe in it. If you're like, well, I don't think this shit's going to work, I'll give it a try. Nah, can't go there. And for the least thing, you say, well, I don't know where it's going to take me, but take me where you will. Show me what you got, crystal, and mean it. And even if you don't get anything out of it, you can say, well, that was a nice meditation anyway. And of course, if it wants out of your body or hand or whatever, then, whatever. But so to the same point, though, sometimes I will put my energy like into this crystal here, and it's a double. This is a shovel-headed one, by the way. I've got many books on crystals and of different types and things, and I've dug my own crystals out of the mountains and things, and there's just an understanding about it. But when people say, well, I don't really need a crystal, actually, maybe you do. It doesn't have to be a big one like this one. It can be a small pocket size. I would prefer that you would look for a crystal that hasn't been polished, because tumbled rocks and things will screw up the energy on things. Now, they're good for a worry stone. Just, put it in your hand and kind of rub it, when you're thinking or whatever, what they call a worry stone. Could be a meditation stone. But to get a crystal, even if it's got a chip or even if it's got a smack on it, you're better off with the raw deal, because you still have the raw energy of the earth that's still attached right here along this backside. You still have where these different fractures, there's different minerals in here that will help it vibrate at a different frequency. There are slashes on the side of this. And depending on where you are or who you believe, that each one of these slash marks on the side of the crystal represents like a growth ring on a tree, but also that it could represent healing and there's all different kinds of things. So, but the thing is, sometimes you focus on the clear side, like this side of the crystal here, there's almost not a mark on it and it's never been polished. But on this side, there are slashes all the way up this thing like ladders. And so one side has got a different frequency to it. And because of those are natural slashes in the crystal, that's what tunes the crystal. So some of them are absolutely shiny all around. This one, well, come to look at it, it's got, it's shiny up here towards on the points. But all along the sides of these things, it feels like a washerboard. And the growth lines, but that's what tunes these things. They tune themselves because those are the growth lines of the crystals. And so it's like, so using them to your advantage to tune into the cosmic radio stations. So we can all tune into the same programs. And we already are, with just a slight variance. And I'm really proud of that. I actually am. I'm excited that other people are like, they're using different terminology than what I'm used to. But in my shaman's world, it's like, that's where you're at. Oh, that's what you mean by that. Oh, okay. In shaman's term, this is what it means. Okay. You're not channeling, but you're definitely plugged in. And there's a difference. So please utilize what Creator gave us. These are from Mother Earth. With Mother Earth, they grew. You wish to be close to the earth? Grab a hold of a good crystal. Don't let anybody else do it. I've got crystals that people can handle, and I say, you can handle those. But these over here, I'll let you look at it, but you don't hold it. And if they do, I smudge it, because there are certain rocks, only my energy should be on them because I've programmed them for myself. It's not that I'm trying to be picky or choosy. They can't have anybody else's energy on them because it messes with what I'm trying to focus with it. I'm trying to correct my frequencies, and I use these tools like you'd go out in the garden and use a shovel or a hoe or a rake. Use them. Why use your fingers to try to collect, the leaves in the fall? No, use a damn rake. Use a crystal with the correct intent, with the correct focus, and allow it to happen. If you're already pretty much tuned into things, woo-hoo, you should be in for a really cool ride, okay? Now, if you've tried crystals before and you're like, well, maybe you need to look at it from a different point of view then. Maybe it's like, well, I meditated with a crystal, but I didn't really feel anything. Well, sometimes I meditate with a crystal and I don't feel anything either. There might not be anything there at the moment. Doesn't mean the crystal isn't working. Doesn't mean that you're not connected. It means that there wasn't anything there at the moment. So some people say, how many times a couple times. No. Oh, no, please. I have sat with these rocks for years. Some of them like 15, 20 years I've had some of these rocks. I mean, I say they're mine in that it's my energy that are in these rocks. Now, when I realize that when I go to pass away from this life, there are many of these rocks I need to give to some people. And I can't, if I'm fixing to die, I want to give it to you. I don't want any money. Okay, help bury me. All right. But to the point, though, no, they need to be given away to people. I need to feel somebody's frequency. And there have been times I've given away some, really expensive stones, in the hundreds of dollars worth of stones, because I've met a person and went, man, shit, I'm not supposed to keep this stuff, even though I paid big bucks for this thing. You're supposed to have this rock. Here you go. And people go, what? I'm sorry, but Creator says I got to pass that thing on to you. I'm sorry, I can't hold on that rock anymore. As much as I love it, as much money as it cost me, it's yours for nothing. Here you go. And I've freaked a lot of people out over the years by giving them rocks. And it be the rock that they needed. Like, oh my God, how did you know this rock was for me? Out of all the millions of rocks in the world and hundreds that I have around my house and such. But I just tune in and say, okay, I know this person in Tampa. And I'll tell you this. Well, I'll tell it as quick as I can. My pops was dying in the hospital in 1999. Around this time of the year, by the way. It was just before Thanksgiving. It was the day after Thanksgiving, in November 99, that we had to unplug my pops. So, but anyway, there was a gentleman at Tampa General Hospital who was a volunteer, and they called him Doc, but for a different reason. But anyway, he went around and he played a Native American flute, and he would go into patients' room and play the flute. Now, his repertoire wasn't very big, but that wasn't the point. He went in and he played with a lilt and a heart, and he took Creator into every place that he played. And I met Doc in the hospital, asked him if he would go play for my father, and in having conversation with him, realized that I'd said something. I was holding a crystal in while he was playing in the intensive care unit where my pops was. And he said, wow, that's an interesting crystal. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I've always wanted a crystal, but I never get to the mountains or anything. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll bring you one. And he was like, yeah, sure. Okay. Shook hands. And I came back up here to South Georgia. And about a week or so later, I went back down because I was going down every week or every other week, depending on my work schedule here. But while I was here, I meditated on my friend Doc. And I said, okay, he needs a crystal. So I went through all the crystals in my house. For a whole week, I looked. And I found this rock. And I said, okay, you want to go back to Tampa with me? I got this person in mind. I checked with the crystal. Okay. So I get there late to the hospital. Visiting hours are over, but by God, I made it to Tampa, and I'm going to go in to see my pops anyway, even if it's just to peek through the curtain. And the nurses were very good. They'd let me come in and say a prayer over him and hold his hand for a few minutes, and then I'd leave. As long as I was respectful, they would let me come in at different hours because they knew that I was traveling from out of state. But anyway, of all the people, after all this, I bumped smack dab into Doc with his flute. And he was on his way home. And I said, "Oh, I have a present for you." And I had the crystal already in my hand. I was loaded for bear. So he goes, "Oh, I know you. Your name is, and your pop is in that, and your son is Samuel." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, well, what do you got for me?" And I said, "Close your eyes, hold out your hand." "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Please." you know. And he's okay. And he held out his hand, and I put the crystal in his hand, and he jumped off of the floor. He literally was like, "What? You really did bring me a crystal?" And he goes, "Oh my God, this is from North Carolina in the mountains, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah," because at that time I knew where certain crystals were because I went to the mountains, bought them, dug them. I knew where that crystal came from. I said, "You're correct." He said, "You brought this to me?" And I said, "Yeah, I told you I was." He said, "No one has ever brought me such a gift as you have brought me." And I said, "And no one has given my pops the gift that you give with your flute and your music." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Consider it fair payment." He goes, "Well, I don't want anything." And I said, "That's not what I meant. Spiritually." Now, here's the rest of this story. I've talked to Doc. I met him a couple of times. My pop died, and all was that. Now, several years later, it was like 2004 kind of thing. I'm at a powwow in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and I'm telling this story to a friend of mine in a booth there who's a Native American. He made moccasins and different kinds. I mean, just all kinds of things, right? And so I'm sitting there in front of the heater because it's freezing to death. And I'm telling him this story. And I'm saying, I've been blessed with so many things over the years. When I listen to Creator and my spirit guide, and he's given me guidance, and he was, "You're the guy that gave Doc the crystal at the hospital?" And I went, "You know Doc?" He goes, "Yeah, Doc's a good friend of mine. I go down to Florida every winter and we like hang out." And I was like, "Oh, come on." He goes, "No, he told me the story of this guy coming into the hospital. He played the flute for his pops, and he received this crystal as a gift. He told me the whole story from his point of view, and you just told me the story from your point." Oh shit. I got to wait till I get back to Tampa and Dade City and down there. Wait till I tell Doc. He's going to flip. And so I gave him my business card and everything, and we chat some more. And oh my God, what a small world kind of deal, which obviously we're both in Tennessee at a powwow where neither one of us are from, but we meet about Doc, about something that happened 5 years earlier. And I'm like, holy shit. So he says, I'm going to give your business card to Doc. I get back to Georgia. I don't know, it's been about a week later. I get a phone call. It's Doc Green. He's like, "Man, you're the guy that gave me the crystal. And my buddy just told me the story." So we chatted on the phone for almost an hour. And he goes, "I do flute music. Give me I got your address here. May I send you a copy of some of my flute music?" And I was like, "I would be honored." So sure enough, about a week later, I get this thing in the mail, and he sent me a CD of his Native American flute music. And I'm like, oh my God. Now this is now like almost 2007. So, from 1999, almost, about 7 or 8 years, this story had, and then it came upon some folks at a powwow it's in Georgia, but you could throw a rock to Florida over near the Okefenokee there in the southeastern Georgia. And it's a Cherokee, it's Southern Cherokee, little reservation area there. And they were having a powwow. So I'm having a chat with a fellow. And I was like, "Yeah, I know Kashka LaRue." And he goes like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, and this story about Doc." And I knew the other gentleman's name, but I can't remember. You know him too. You know Doc Green. So it was like all of a sudden, these people who I'm meeting in the strangest of places, we all know one another from some other source. And somehow Doc knows. They knew me as the puppeteer and the storyteller, the crystal giver. And I'm like, oh my God, how far can this story go? Well, I'm not dead yet. And somebody had recently, within the last year or so, had made a comment about flute player in Tampa, Doc Green, and I was like, oh my God, he's still around. They have a flute festival about this time of year down around Dade City, and folks just get together and play different types of flutes and music. It's like an open festival. But anyway, so here I sit and I say to myself, do crystals really matter? Do giving them to people or whatever? Oh my God, the story of me giving this crystal to one person and the effect of all the people, his story, my story, our stories, our combined stories. And it was all because we met over my pop, who was in intensive care and died right after I gave him the crystal. Quite frankly, it was like about 2 weeks later. That's not the point of that so much as that we never know. So how did I perform this miracle? I asked Creator to show me what I needed to do. I simply asked Creator and my higher self, show me what I need to do. Pick that rock right there and give it to this gentleman and use these simple words when you do it. And oh my God, over the years, and the last time I'd heard, he still has that crystal. He cherishes that crystal. And I'm like, and oh my God, for whatever it has done for him, to think that I somehow instigated it. I mean, because I just listened. I just did what I was told by the angels. Did I channel anybody to get there? No. I just listened to the angels tell me, do this for this man because of what he does freely for others. A volunteer at the hospital, he goes in with the sickest of patients and he plays this beautiful flute music. And I'm like, the man needs 100 crystals. You know, the least I can do is give him one that I felt was right. And apparently I did it. I'm not patting myself on the back about this, but these are the kinds of miracles in my life that prove to me that when Spirit talks and I listen correctly, that profound and wondrous things happen on so many levels. But I was meditating with a crystal to get the information so that I could pass another crystal on. It's the truth. I couldn't make this up, but but to have met someone in Tennessee that knew Doc, and that it's still, as I'm telling this true story, I'm sitting here going, that is just absolutely phenomenal. And after all these years, I was upstairs the other day, I ran across the CD. It was Doc's, Doc Green, native flute music. And I'm like, oh, shit. So in so many ways, he's still around, in my life, simply by the fact that I still have his CD of flute music. So, and if he's still alive and still has the crystal, then we're still affecting each other out here in this quantum space. We're still connected. And maybe it's because I held that crystal, I meditated with it and put prayers into that crystal on my way to Tampa. And, it's a 7-hour drive to get from my house to downtown. And so for 7 hours, I held and meditated on that crystal. And then the first person into the hospital, I literally bump into, boom. He was coming out of the elevator that I was going to turn into, and his step and my step, and we literally bumped into each other. And I gave him that crystal. So it was from my hand to his, with all that meditation put behind it and the prayers placed in that crystal before I handed it off. But then the rest has been his story. But as I'm speaking about this, I'm thinking, in so many words, I've been connected with him because of the prayers I put into that. A little bit of my consciousness I put it in there, and it was part of the energy when I gave it to him, and not to influence him anyway, because it was all just nothing more than Creator, bless this man, bless this crystal, allow this crystal to help him play the music, allow Doc to be able to continue what he does, and so that his music is sweet and clear, and that every time he, I mean, it was that I was just shooting the juice into this crystal. So it's like profound things happen. Whew. Well, welcome to my world. I've got so many true stories about things like this that are like connected but disconnected but not. And as I speak to you now about them in this quantum area, Native Americans are very attuned to it. It's the spirit world. You're connected. That's great spirit. That's the great spirit. And we can all hear what spirit says when we listen. And spirit, ain't necessarily male or female, but it's spirit. And so it's like, I would rather use great spirit than God any day. But, to the point though, it's a focal point. It's the great spirit. And when you listen to Grandfather Sky, meaning just the wisdom of the cosmos, when you listen to Grandfather Sky and to Great Spirit, the wisdom is given. When you have pure intent, when you're listening, when you are tuned in and you want it, you will receive it. And no kind of fancy schmancy ceremony is really, really, really necessary. Now, that's not to say all ceremonies are bad and aren't. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that especially now, with all these new energies coming in here, with each of us getting dinged and binged and woke up in different ways and frequencies and things, find something that'll help ground you. And I'm sitting here holding this crystal going, wow, this really feels good. Wow, this thing really feels good. And it usually just sits right over there, just literally within an arm's reach, with the pointed at me. So I'm receiving this energy around in my area, and I have charged my area. I've got cast iron. Let's see, will it show up? These are old cast iron radiators that I got out of some old homes in Thomasville and Moultrie, some out of old Victorian homes. The cast iron is to help keep the bad spirits out because they don't like cast iron much. That's why they put up cast iron fences around cemeteries, was to keep the evil spirits out of the enclosure. I always wondered about that. And then when I did the study on it, it was like, they don't really like steel that well or cast iron. Okay. So people now, as sort of like a warding spell, if you will. Now, I don't have any cast iron on me. I do have some metal, but the cast iron sitting next to me, I'm close enough to its proximity. Ain't no evil spirits want to come hang around me. They don't want to. They can't sit next to me, or they're going to be touching this cast iron. So there are things around me and in my world that I kind of already know. I preset things, and I know where safe zones are. I've got my good crystals that are used for the different meditations and for insights. And the meditations is not just to clear my head. It's what kind of knowledge can you impart with me now that's out there for everybody to hear? Don't know. But I got to shut my mouth and I got to listen, got to turn my brain down, got to focus, got to tune in with a crystal or however you can do it. But I'm advising you, if you're having difficulty, use a crystal because that's what they're for. Just saying, okay? Yeah, I'm repeating myself again, but it really is important. And I've got literally hundreds of these things around the house, out in the yard, upstairs, in the windows. I mean, I forget how many crystals I have, and other types of gemstones too. If you only have one or two, then my suggestion would be, and this is from a lot of experience, would be sea salt. They love sea salt water in the moonlight. Okay, they need nighttime. The new solar energy that we're getting right now is the wrong color, and that a lot of crystals now, it doesn't mean you can't put them in the sun, but they don't like the sun like they used to with the yellow sun. Just as a personal note there. but that they really like the moon energy or the nighttime energy. And especially, and I mean heavy salt. If you got a thing of sea salt, put a decent cupful, handful right there into a small bowl, preferably glass or maybe cast iron or maybe stainless steel, but not plastic. Don't put it in anything plastic. Nah, please don't. Some kind of earthenware is even better. All right, a good clay pot that doesn't leak. But put the salt in there, smudge it with whatever you've got at the time. Hopefully sage. Smudge it very good with the sage before you put it in. Smudge it to each of the 4 cardinal points, up and down, and also to the elements, to fire, earth, water, and air. Also the elementals. Don't leave them out. Okay, and which are above and below, by the way. But then you put it in the salt water and just let it sit for a day or two. Just let her sit. And you'll just go by and check. You can pull it out and put it back in. And I don't even bother them. Now, normally I can literally hear some of my crystals call for me. I've lost them before and go, where are you? And literally, they go, I'm over here. And go, where? Oh, shit, I left that crystal in a pair of pants, and I dropped them by the corner because my pants were wet when I came in from working in the garden. And, oh, that crystal's over there in my pants pocket. Oh, crap. And it will literally tell me where it's at. I know it's creepy, but it's like, it's like looking for your phone where you hit the little beeper, and it's like, okay, where are you? And sometimes I will forget because, okay, I put my pants over there a day or two ago and I'm off on somewhere else. And when I go back to the garden, I'll put those same pants on because they're my gardening pants. But, if the crystal wants me, it will just literally holler out, go, please come get me. Don't leave me over here. And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, I'll be sitting here like just watching a video or something, and I'll get this incoming message from the crystal. Come get me. Oh, well, where are you? And then the chase is on. But to the point, though, I know this sounds really crazy, but when you tune yourself to these things, and I needed to have that crystal on me at the time because unbeknownst to me, there was an incoming message from the big giant head. And it had particularly that I had been using that crystal as sort of my power monitor or, my tuning fork, if you will. And so it was like, and I got it, picked it up, held it, did my meditation, and I was like, oh, shit, big download. Oh, that's why you wanted me. Okay. But so anyway, lots of stories, true stories about that kind of thing that goes on all the time. So I consider that you hear me talk about the awareness of nature and everything around you. Well, you have to be willing to be aware that a crystal can call you. You might get this little buzzy feeling, but if you don't believe that a crystal can call you, you're going to go, there's some kind of annoying thing going on. I don't know what the flip it is. But when you expand your awareness, there is no box to think out of. Crystals will call you. They will speak to you. They will interpret messages. They will help give you downloads. Please use them wisely. Please always be respectful because of the frequency of the crystal itself. And like I continue to say, each one has its own frequency. Now, I can hold this same crystal, and it's got a little bit of a shovel nose right here versus like a perfect centerpiece. A little bit of a shovel nose there. You can kind of see the profile right there. All right, because this side is shorter. Now, I can put my thumb on that slope and hold it a particular way, and it's the energy of the crystal. But if I turn the crystal over and put my thumb between these two, I get a totally different vibration from them because I'm picking up vibration from this part of this crystal and this same crystal, different vibration, slightly different frequency, if you will. They both are really nice. I mean, this crystal is like super warm right now. I mean, it's really warm. And I haven't been necessarily clutching it so hard. It's that me and the energy with this particular crystal, it has a tendency to warm up on its own just by the proximity, me just holding it for a minute. Where this big rock right here, it's still cold. This thing's like really warm. But to the point though, so you can put this energy in it, and then you can draw upon the energy you store in it to help with whatever frequency or whatever. So these things are wonderful, wonderful tools. And I suggest if you don't work with a crystal or crystals, that you do so. You should give it a try. And you should just find ones, whatever it is, wherever, maybe the best kind is a gifted one that matches you. But with that said, find one, I've gone to rock shops and I'm like, do you mind if I touch the rocks? And they're like, as long as you're careful, and if you drop it, you pay for it, kind of deal. I'm like, okay. And I'm always respectful, but I'll go along and I'll like, if it's sitting on a shelf, I'll just touch the point. Just, how you doing there? Okay, you doing all right? All right. Next one, put my finger, just touch it. And then if I find one that's like wants to talk to me, then I'll say, may I pick this up? Depending on the shop owner. Say, okie dokie, all right. Now I'll put it left hand first, then I put it in my right hand. Do you like either hand, or do you want to go back to the shelf? Put me back. Okay, bye. Next. Don't even wonder why. Just go. But when you get one, you're going to hold it in one hand. You're going to pass it back and forth. And when you go to put it on the shoulder, back on the shelf, even if you do, I put stuff down on the shelf and turn to walk away and hear this, you better not leave me. And went, what? And went and packed up the rock and went, oh, you want to go with me? Yep. Okay, no, come on. So a lot of different ways to choose them, but you need to ask them. You need to, oh, look at that's pretty. That's not what it's about, because this rock really isn't that pretty compared to some of these other crystals I have. But this thing is strong and potent, and wow, even though it's got some nicks and bumps in it, wow. So it's not the pretty, it's what it contains and what it can do for you in the different dimensions. So always, and rocks get tumbled and banged, but don't go buy a tumbled rock. One that they take a perfectly good crystal that they say, well, it's got a couple of nicks in it. They throw it in a batch with a bunch of other rocks and turn it smooth. Woo, looky here. Oh, no, stop it. You ruined the frequency of the rock. Now, does that mean the rock's no good? No, I don't mean that. But it has changed its frequency. Now it's sort of a man-made, when I would much rather have the natural frequency, regardless of the nicks or cuts on a real crystal. Just saying. And you'll find the same thing if you study it enough like I have. So with that said, I'm going to put on my glasses and get a little drink here and check in the chat. I know I keep seeing this thing going over there, and you know my rule, I can't look. If I look, it's almost like I lose my connection, And so, but they pretty much said that what needed to be said about this subject has pretty much been, what they wanted me to get across about this is, I'm done. Time for coffee. And I am very glad, happy, humbled by you folks as hanging out with me and trying to listen to my ramblings about these things. But there is so much more to learn about this universe. And people who are just really new to this thing, hang on, guys. Wait till you see the rest of it. And I see these people, and they're becoming aware, and they are connecting, and I'm very proud and very happy and hopeful, and I'm literally jumping up and down inside about this. That's kind of why I'm a little hyper about this right now. But with that said, though, boy, as my shaman training says, you're just starting to get this particular part of it. Wait till you get the rest of it of just what I know. And it's like, you're coming. You guys are doing just fine. I've just been at this a crap load longer than a lot of people, At 66, if you're 40, I'm sorry, I got 26 years on you right there. you know. And so I was already doing shaman training before most folks were born, and in some of these things. And I don't mean that in a rude respect, but at the age of 17 and 18, I was studying this stuff. And that means like 71, 1972. And some people weren't even born till like 80. So it's like, but you want to compare your life story to mine. In the spiritual world, I just have more time in this. Am I better at it? I just have more knowledge. I've just been at this longer. That's what wisdom is. The only thing that I see lacking in some folk is simply the wisdom. You got some of the technique, and you're definitely connecting to the right place. Maybe your terminology's off. Maybe this is off. But the big thing I see what is lacking with folks, and I mean this with the utmost of respect, is the wisdom of the knowledge you now possess. That's all. You need to learn to use it more. And some folks are just starting to get how to use it. I've been using this for quite a while. And so in that respect, you got the right track. But in a year, tell me how you feel about this. Now that you understand what you are doing and the downloads, or however you want to go. Tell me, next year we'll get together again and have this conversation. Now, how do you feel? You're going to feel a whole lot different next year simply by this knowledge. And because you will have a year's worth of wisdom. That's the only thing I see that's different with some of my journey and other people. I've just been at this longer. Doesn't mean I'm more right or wrong than some of these people. No, but when you have more experience at something, you're a master carpenter, or you're a master plumber, or you're a master baiter, or you're a master electrician. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in there, but a little bit of fun time. Surprised you, didn't I? But seeing that people are tuning in and allowing themselves to tune into the right way without going into allowing some entity to enter their body. I'm very happy and pleased with that. But don't throw your crystals away yet, as I've heard some kind of, well, I don't need that crystal anymore. Oh, yeah, you do. Oh, don't throw them away. Do you need your tarot cards? No. But crystals, you can program to keep any entities out. You can program with your own energy to where another being who tries to come near you in that crystal ain't going to get near you, because you've set up an energy field around you with that crystal. Ain't coming in. They can get close. They can bounce off of it. Ain't getting in. So before you throw your crystals away, thinking, well, maybe an entity could get to this. If you charge it with your own energy and you put nobody else gets in here, this is my energy, this is my connection, this is me in the universe, any negative entities or energies that try to interfere with this crystal or me and my, you just kind of say, spell it out. That's the magic of it. You say, nobody's going to get me while I'm holding this. Nobody's going to get into this crystal. And this crystal doesn't want anything negative in it. Crystals don't like negative shit. They will break, crack, split. So they're kind of already pre-programmed. You don't, sorcerers and people don't really use some types of stones because they can't withstand the negative energy they wish to put forth. Crystals, they're not tuned that way. Naturally. Now you can program them to program negative energy, but you're doing a disservice to, that's just wrong on so many levels. But naturally speaking, a crystal will be harmonious, and then it will be giving off good energy regardless. So any evil entity really isn't going to try to get near it because of what the crystal is and what it already does. So you want protection? Just put one of these puppies near you. And it doesn't have to be this big, but this is just the one I'm showing you right now. But to the point, so before you just frivolously, well, we don't really need that. I beg your pardon. Maybe you really do. Listen to the wisdom of this old hippie. Don't throw your crystals away yet. All right, let me see. Miss Breaking Dawn, sea salt is best for the crystal charging. That I've used it over the years, and I mean, make sure now we didn't have Himalayan salt back in the day. Now you do. It's like everywhere. But sea salt is really it likes sea salt. But a Himalayan salt has different the pinkish stuff, in the big granules. Rock salt is good as well. If you don't have sea salt. The rock salt that you use for the old ice cream churns and stuff, you can still buy it. That's good. But table salt, not so much. And you say, well, why sea salt? Because it came from the sea. There are minerals and things and stuff that interacts with the crystal. The crystal interacts with it. And sea salt has a tendency, other salts do it. Now, I haven't tried Himalayan because I didn't used to have Himalayan salt, but to clean crystals with. But as a purpose, though, there are some. I think it's like a magnetic kind of charge that will help draw the negative energy out of a crystal because it's sea salt, because it's from the sea, and anyway. But regular salt is like, anyway. Marie, you're folding laundry. Yeah, my laundry's behind me on the chair. I'm like, well, okay. But anyway, let me go back up here. Quartz, Breaking Dawn, Marie, Butterfly Kisses. Hello, love your energy. Just found your channel. I don't know if you're still there, Butterfly, but thank you. Yeah, Butterfly says crystals have so much knowledge. They really do, and will show you knowledge and take you. And Quartz says crystals are nature's currency. In a way, it's the currency of the exchange of energy. How about that one? Butterfly says most humans have pets. I have crystals. I got both, but I gifted my children with a crystal necklace for each of them I made. It's my way of them protecting them when you're not around. Agreed, Butterfly. Absolutely. Marie says, yeah, I use pink salt. Well, that's what I didn't even read it. And I picked up on what you were thinking about the Himalayan salt, by the way, Marie. How about them apples? No, I didn't get the pizza question right, but how about the pink salt? That's what I meant by the Himalayan. You can use either, but like to my point, we just didn't have access to Himalayan salt. But when you think of Himalayan salt and the crystals and the mountains, and it's the Himalayas, yeah, I would think that you could soak crystals in it very well. I just haven't. I've just got more sea salt than I have Himalayan. I use the Himalayan myself. But to the point, if you got access, use it. I know this stuff as well. Sea salt. Yep. Okay. Maybe I didn't go back up far enough. Marie says, haha, people who go to conferences like UFOs, one's mind, body, spirit, those who channel, pay a high price to be a part of some exclusive when no one can own it. Absolutely, Marie. That's one of those things about talking about that kind of thing. It's like, tell me you have a personal experience versus you channeled some entity. I believe you and your spirit because it's you. But when folks try to convince me, well, I talked to JFK, I'm like, you just shut me off right there. Sorry, I ain't gonna go there. If you're saying you're speaking to your higher self and to your spirit guide or your guardian angel, I'm with you. But so any kind of other, I'm sorry. How do you know? That's all. See, and now I notice y'all are talking about the Anunnaki and stuff. And here's my take on this. We're not really sure. And so a lot of this stuff that people are taking as the gospel And even when people read the gospel, especially out of the King James Version, they're not reading the true gospel because King James changed it. My point about some of these things is, remember, take some of these teachings and writings with a grain of salt. Before you say, oh, well, that's it, hang on. Man wrote that shit down. And every single man that writes anything down is going to interpret it. And things have been interpreted, reworded, reclassified, restuffed. We're not sure. So I say, read about the Anunnaki. But should you? Well, yeah, that's what happened. And I'm saying, they're telling me, no, not quite. So there's stories about this, and everybody's going to believe this narrative. And when I ask about it, they're going, no, not quite. Some of that is true. But a lot of people, in my humble opinion, are putting way too much into the names of things. Were there people who came before us? Yeah. What were the names? Who cares? I'm not trying to be rude, but who cares? We had ancestors here on this earth. Where'd they come from? Well, I don't know. Some say here. Well, we're going to argue amongst ourselves where it's Anunnaki and it's them and it's the Pleiadians and it's who cares? We had people come before us and they were our ancestors. That's enough to me, in my opinion. Let's all agree on that part, because the rest of it's really kind of sketchy. And why we should argue about the name of something and who was king. And I mean, I've been through this stuff 3 or 4 times, and the Emerald Tablets, and I've been through this stuff, and it's like, it's a story. I'm not sure it's a history. It's a really good story, but I'm not sure it's the history, because the Bible's got some really good stories in it too, but is it really the history? Just saying. It was written down by somebody. That's my point. So as we get our awareness, there's some of this stuff from the tablets and things, I'm like, that makes sense. But the rest of it sounds kind of connived and contrived. And I see people debating this, and I'm like, why? Just agree we had ancestors. And some of them might have named their names was Enki and Enlil. Okay, do we agree that these beings could have existed? Let's all agree on that. Was one and this and that and the other? That's just all supposition. Until they land and show us the real story, everything is supposition on our parts. So I'm just saying, read the stories, but should you like throw your whole heart and soul in? My spirits are saying, don't go there. Don't go there, because you could very well be disappointed, because that's part of the trap. That's part of the soul trap. Well, Enki and Enlil and all these people. And it's like, hang on, guys. It is a good story. And there may be a lot of truth in it. And it might be a lot of bullshit that everybody's convinced is true. And I'm being told through the angel message that some of it is true. But you're going to be a lot of people surprised that the whole story ain't like it was let out to be, because they've obfuscated the truth. They've twisted it slightly. They've angled it in one person's favor or another. And as a writer and so forth, I understand it, man. It's really easy to kind of slant something a little way. I did a play. I rewrote some Edgar Allan Poe and turned it into a play. Actually, we did 3 plays in one. It was The Cask of Amontillado. It was the Telltale Heart. And I rewrote the Fall of the House of Usher. And we performed them on stage several years ago. And the thing is I realized I wanted to maintain who Poe was and what Poe said. But in my current language, I realized by simply, altering a word here or there, modifying the sentence to try to make it easier for an actor to do and make the thing, where he was talking in his head, I had to give those talkings in his head, I had to give those words to people to act them. So in doing so, to make it turn it into a conversation between people versus a conversation in his head, I realized I really was trying to okay, Poe, talk to me here. I want this to be a play, but I want to hear you. And I damn near channeled him, I swear, because it was like I really got into that so deeply, into his language and how he was writing and what the mystique and how he was using certain words, certain phrases that are different from us in this century kind of thing. And I realized it didn't take much for me. And I was just trying to condense and I realized that overall I had messed with the total. Yes, the message got across. Yes, the people loved the play and they came back and watched it again and we got rave reviews. But the point was, from my point of view, of taking Poe's work and transcribing them in such a way as to put it on stage, I lost a little bit of him. But what was replaced was me. It was my interpretation of his words. And I tried to stay as true as possible, but it still ended up being partially me, even though I did my best. So I rubbed off on the play simply because I had to truncate it and make it into this thing. So I realized, as a historian's point of view, and not wanting to mess with Edgar Allan Poe, was that I actually kind of did. In the slightest way, and I know what I did, and I know how it kind of changed the theme, because we're taking what was in the friend's head who went to the house of Usher, his friend. It was all this conversation, everything was in the man's head. So I had to bring this out into speech, and in that translation of what he was thinking is how I got into it. Because I had to put in, and he said, or oh my, or whatever. And so I had to use a little bit of my inflection in there to use Poe in a conversation on stage. And so, but to my point though with this, things have been rewritten so many times, we just need to be careful. Because as hard as I tried to not mess with Poe, in the end I realized I did. Now, people didn't notice it, but because I was so in depth with it, I knew it anyway. But to that point, so with that said, we need to learn the stories, keep an eye on them. But should we put like 100% faith in this? That's a no from what they're telling me. It's really good, it's nice stuff, but wait till they come to give us the whole truth. Before we make any rash, and we should stop arguing about this shit, is what they're telling me. If you're worried about Enki, Enlil, and who's right and who's wrong and what tablet, oh, shut up. We're wasting our energy on this crap. Doesn't matter whose name was what. It matters whether or not we can make this transition so the planet can ascend. Da-da! Why are we worried about who's named what? Is it really important? Well, maybe to you, and it used to be important to me until they told me, you're really spinning your wheels, because this really doesn't count. It's a story. We'll find out soon enough if it's true or not. But in the grand scheme of things, what does it matter who their names were or what they did or who came? What does that do to my personal spiritual transition? It's a story. Enki and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anunnaki, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But what does that have to do with my personal ascension here? My personal spiritual growth. What does that story have to do? What does the Bible stories have to do with my personal growth? None. They're all just stories. It's all just stuff I can learn from. I can use them as parables, and I can use the information and translate it into a spiritual awareness on my own over here. But do those words of those people and those things, are these fighting words? No. And we shouldn't be. We should go, okay, well, that's your version of the story. And there's nothing wrong with your version, but none of us know the freaking truth. Some of us got an idea, but to the point, why are we fighting over this? Is it helping you, Anunnaki or not, on your own spiritual growth? Does it matter? I don't. Not to me. Well, then you might be from this. Yeah. Well, I might be Jewish too. I don't know. I was surprised to find out I was Native American, and more than not. But to the point, though, it's like I didn't go out and tear off my white man's clothes and put on moccasins. I was like, that's interesting. But to the point, though, yes, I learned about my ancestry, and yes, I learned about other things. But when the ancestry and when the story's been altered and changed over so much time, we just need to look at it as a really, really good story with some truth in it. But none of us have been there. None of us really know. Everything is supposition on our parts. So we should stop fighting about this. Tell the story. It's really interesting. But I see people who 3 or 4 years ago were on this subject of the Anunnaki, and then it tapered off. And now all of a sudden, like, people are back into the Anunnaki thing again. And I'm like, what? And even during Milky Way Weeklies, we were talking about there's some things that are like repeating themselves, like the NASA and stuff. They keep coming up with these galaxies colliding and this other stuff. And it's like, they told us that 30 years ago. They keep rehashing the story. Thing with Planet X, things kind of, now Planet X is all out there again. Okay, here we go again. All right. Now it's the Anunnaki again. And there are those people who haven't heard about it. And now all the arguments back again. And I'm like, hadn't we already, a year or so ago, we all went kind of through this on the YouTube, and then 2 or 3 years earlier than that, right after Sitchin died, and didn't we go through it when Sitchin came out with it? Haven't we been through this conversation before? What the are we still talking about it for? Well, because there are newbies in the house. Okay. But before we go trying to convince these people that this is the real story and nothing else, we should just say, this is a story. Believe what you will of it. Period. Whatever version you read. And we should respect the other people, because none of us can prove it. Well, there's some evidence over here. Okie dokie, there's evidence. But we really don't know. It's an interpretation of whatever it is. There are a bunch of pictures on the wall. Okay. Now, but my point is that what's it doing for you and me right now about the Anunnaki, who's going to get us to our next level? Nothing. The Emerald of Thoth. Okay, well, I don't know. I've read some science fiction writers. I mean, Robert Heinlein wrote some pretty damned interesting things in some of his books. And it's like, who's quoting Robert Heinlein as being like a spiritual master? Or some of these other writers, Isaac Asimov, some of the stuff he wrote. He was a, visionary. And so Arthur C. Clarke, why aren't we quoting them? Oh, well, we're going to quote the Anunnaki from 3,000 years ago. Yeah, well, okay. I'd much rather believe somebody more current that's kind of been more in touch with the current situation kind of thing versus a story about something way. Okay. All right. Okay. I think you get my point. But I will end this little Anunnaki kind of history thing in what it doesn't do any good for us to argue over it. It's a cool discussion. Okay, fine. But for those who have already been through this, I'm not rehashing it. I'm not going back through it. I'd rather read another story. I'd rather read another version over here, get another take over here, if you will. But I've realized now that I can't trust what has been said. I can trust that some of it's true. There's good documentation, but there's no reason to fight over it. It's history. And I want to know how to go into the future. We keep dragging this crap from the past with us. What good is this Enki information doing for us now and in the future? I don't see it. Just say it. So in my opinion, it's a really good story. Okay. No disrespect. Y'all can argue over it and all this other kind. But for me, it's waste of time. Let's move on to other things. Oh my God, there's so much more we could be talking about. than going back over and rehashing this stuff about things we is a hypothetical kind of, well, we think, oh, well, okay. And not to be beat up any of you all that want to go there. I'm just saying, is it doing any good with your spiritual journey now? Quartz, you say I got a point. Thank you. There was that was an answer to a question you asked regarding the story of the Bible. Wait, let me go back up a little bit. Oh, somehow I missed it. But I got the point. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Quartz. And the thing is that, and now look, I really like reading some of these legends and things. I mean, I've sat with Kashka, the legend keeper from the Tlingit tribe, and the legends have been accepted into as part of the Alaskan historical record, even though you can't write it down. It's all oral tradition to this day. That these folks, they are legend keepers, and a legend is a trueness. It's not a story. A legend is like the real deal. A myth is not a legend. A story, but to those who are legend keepers, they are the oral traditionalists who are maintaining that oral legendary story. But it's the truth. I mean, when Kashka spoke about how Raven came and found Turtle, and upon Turtle's back, he found sticks on the water, and that's how they created the earth and the islands, and the Turtle Island. There's history that goes way back about, in the Native Americans, the original land of Mother Earth was called Turtle Island. And if you go back with the Tlingit legends and so forth, Raven came into this planet, onto this earth, and saw it and realized that there needed to be land, and found a turtle floating and started putting. Now, my question has been, where did he get the sticks and rocks and stuff? But that's not the point. The point is that he brought, and Turtle Island has been way back as far as, the ancestors have told in the Native American traditions all over the planet. There's like stories of the turtle in Australia and different places in the Polynesian Islands and in South America, and in the middle of the Mojave Desert, they're talking about the Turtle Island. Like, what are you doing in the middle? I say Mojave. I mean, out in the middle of Colorado, a long way from an ocean, but they know what Turtle Island was, kind of deal, even though they had never witnessed an ocean. So, how can they tell these stories, these legends, if there isn't something to it? So I greatly appreciate it. But the thing is that these stories have been told verbally for thousands of years. They make sure that every so many years they get together, and they must each repeat the stories to each other exactly the way it was told. They are not allowed to deviate from the legend whatsoever. There are 12 elders, legend keepers, and behind each of those 12 legend keepers, there are 2 apprentices. So there are 12 majors, and there are 24 minors. And those minors the backup, that if anything should happen to any one of the elders, then one of these 2 backups to the one, if something happens to one of the back, they've got an extra backup. They are the legend keepers, and they meet regularly and tell these stories over and over. And they're not stories, I'm sorry, the legends, the history. And there you go. Now, I trust that over a freaking book any day, because these people are serious about their legends and their story. Well, I keep saying their story, but their story of life, if you will. Holy crap. There is tradition. These people get together. They all tell it the same way. They all use the same inflection. And then you want to say to yourself, I'm going to read a book that who knows who could have messed with this, versus oral legends that have been they're strict with this stuff, man. And it's like, how strict are we? For example, the King James Version, I've checked this out. I won't go into it much, but since around 1984, there was a switch in the churches and in the Catholic Church and just across. But since 1984, publishing of the Bibles I've seen, anyone could take a book in, claim it's the Holy Bible, leave out pages, add text, doesn't matter, because the printer doesn't care. You give the text to the printer prints it and says, oh, this is the New Testament, the King James Version, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, they're not necessarily taking a true King James Version and reprinting it. Someone is handing them the script to publish. And even the Gideon's Bibles that you find in the hotels, I've got one over there. I take it with me and I compare it to the newer versions. The Gideon's Bibles aren't the same because they were printed by different people. They're put out by the Gideons, but I go into certain verses and things like, well, the Psalms are wrong. They numbered them differently. They're, well, that's different. There are passages in Revelation. Well, those aren't the same. And you go into, there are changes. And it's like, but you're not supposed to change it. Well, but every printing of every King James Version is different because there is no standard in the printing industry of Bibles. So that's why there's so many different versions. So people pick up a Bible assuming that all the information is correct in this book because it says Holy Bible. But in all of my instructions and everything I've said, go back to the old ones. They got the truth because there were strict Bible publishing rules back in the day. If it didn't match, you couldn't call it a Holy Bible. You could call it there were different names, but there were strict rules for publishing a Bible and having a name. And I think even Jeff Doherty brought this out. He said, you know what? People don't even understand that the King James Version now is not the true King James Version. If you go back into history and go online and look at the original King James Version, it's not the same as what's being printed nowadays. So again, this is a little bit more proof in that the Bibles. But my point about stories is that every time somebody reprints the damn thing, they have the opportunity to change it, whether it's on purpose or not. Oral tradition, they'll literally beat each other to death if they don't say it right. I mean, they're serious about that. So with that said, I got a big time butt cramp. Been at this like maybe 2 hours. Quartz, Marie, Breaking Dawn, Miss Deborah, thank you always for your conversations. Butterfly, if you're still hanging out, blessings to you as well. And anybody else who might be hanging out that I might have missed. Tim Who TV. Hey, Tim Who, if you're still out there as well, I kind of sort of missed you, but you're welcome for the chat, Quartz, anytime. And I got to be the grown up in the room. And I say that with, a little tongue in cheek, but to the point, it's like, I just want to bring up a subject for y'all to just, sure, go ahead and do these things, but is it important to you right now? I can't answer that. Not going to try to. Later, Dave. Later, everyone. Thank you, Marie. So let's close this with a quick prayer before y'all leave. Let's please all say a prayer for them poor folk out in California. And, I've watched L.A. Marzulli for a long time. He and his wife and their family lost everything. I mean, the poor man standing out there and everything, all the years that he worked for his house and everything that he's done, all of it up in smoke. They don't have a thing. So it's like, I know he's been out on YouTube and he's been on the radio and videos and things. And I've been watching LA for years. And to think that he lost his home, his studio, his equipment, all of their life savings and everything in their house just went poof up in smoke. Please, that hits home because I feel like I know LA by watching him for so many years. It's a personal thing with LA, and but there's so many other people who've suffered with the fires. I had to watch my house burn down, and I've lost everything due to a fire, and so I get it. There's nothing you can do in the helplessness and the oh my God, everything is gone. Everything. Everything is gone. The realization that it means everything. So I know you all have empathy, but let's just all just say a prayer. Creator, please smile down your energies and help these folks out there in this horrible time. Please, Creator, send your blessing to these people who need it so that they can recover in their hearts and their minds and in their bodies and in their possessions. I pray that every one of them will receive the empathy from us and the love that all of us feel for these people who are suffering. I pray that every one of us, our prayers will be answered when we send them up to Creator, so that Creator will shower them back down on those who need these prayers. So thank you all for the prayer and sending it out with me. Just having a positive thought with this. Thank you all. Blessings. Well, thy will be done. Absolutely. It's our will be done, actually, if we're going to manifest things and stuff. Need another discussion on manifestation. I just touched on that tonight. But to this point, butt cramps. It's 2:11 in the morning Eastern time now. Blessings to all of you. Stay safe, Marie, down there, and you're in the land down under. And to all of you on this end of the world, hugs, kisses, group hug from here in the live stream, and let's send it out to those folks who really need it. Thank you all so